All right, folks, welcome to the Strong for Life podcast. This week, I've got a very special guest. I've got Ray, who is client, but now also an assistant coach in the program. And I thought it'd be a good idea to get Ray on to talk about protein. And we're just going to really go through our own experiences with upping protein, becoming more conscious of protein in our lives, and also going through some of the benefits and like how you can actually add this into your life as well. So, Ray, thanks for jumping on, man. How are you keeping?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm doing great, Connor. Glad to be here. Um, I've benefited from this kind of information for a couple years from you now, so it's nice to participate and bring it to other people.
Yeah, for sure, man. Let's just actually start there, Ray. So like for you, what sort of benefits have you experienced since you started being more conscious of protein intake?
Yeah, clearly it's been the best way for me to control snacking and things like that during my day because I just feel like that if I keep protein coming in at a regular clip, say at meal times, then it's like that slow burn of those calories and energy that keeps me out of the snack bag, honestly. I mean, that's probably been the hugest thing for me. Um, it certainly has helped my training. It's enabled me to feel like I can gain muscle faster because I'm, actually giving my body the tools I guess it needs to do that. Um, and with that, energy just overall changes. It just better management of my body systems, a little more energy, better muscle, easier to move. I couldn't believe the difference it made for me, honestly. I thought I was pretty good with protein because I had it basically every meal, but I wasn't having enough. That's what it boiled
Yeah,
down to.
yeah, I'm pretty similar, mate. Like I was saying to you before we went live that I didn't really think too much about protein. Obviously, being in the fitness industry, people are always talking about it, and I was consciously eating protein sources, but I never started tracking it. And then Alan Aragon's work, being definitely influenced a lot by him. He's really great objective voice in the nutrition space. And then I just started applying his principles in 2021. And yeah, I saw big improvements in my overall just health, like my
Mm.
resiliency to getting sick, ability to build lean muscle mass as well, and training as well. Um, Also, just before we kind of go into the protein, something I haven't shared it with you yet, but I'm going to be sharing this. We're going to be doing a challenge next month, like a fat loss challenge, um, is around cravings. Good tip I got from Charles Poliquin, RIP. He's one of the best strength coaches of all time. He passed away, I think it was last year, but I was listening to a podcast of his recently,
Oh
and
yeah.
he said if you have cravings for sugar, um, basically having glutamine, up to 10 grams of glutamine with water, and then also with heavy cream. So like kind of 30% fat cream. So like a tablespoon or two of the heavy cream and then 10 grams of glutamine with water. And that's a good thing to suppress your uh, sugar urges.
Wow.
So that's something to experiment with like next month when we're doing the challenge. So that should be,
Absolutely.
I'll be sharing it. It was good to tell you now. Okay, fantastic, mate. So let's maybe go through some of the benefits. Do you want to share some of the benefits people can experience from just upping their protein intake?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about a couple of things on this slide already, just in terms of muscle mass, overall strength. I mentioned the appetite um, and curbing and dropping some cravings. Um, the maintaining weight loss, I think, is a good thing to point out too, because you're eating the right kinds of foods. I mean, there's the it used to just be the way to lose weight is to control your calories, but then we've really finessed the argument in the last 20 years or more, just in terms of what kind of calories you're eating makes a big difference. And you know, the more protein you have, the more potential muscle mass you can put on. And then as you stay active, using those muscles will help you maintain that fat loss. You know, using muscles will help burn fat. So it's just a win-win all the way around, as I see that.
Yeah, and if you have
Um,
like the calories in, calories out argument, you could whatever go for 2000 calories a day and you're eating whatever you want, you know, like the Twinkie diet, the one of the guys did this, but like you know, if you look at how satiated and also just all of the micronutrients you're going to be getting from like whole foods, like meat and vegetables, like just protein and plants, like you're going to be able to eat way more food uh, and still stay within your calories, but you're going to be getting tons of protein as well. So it's just a win-win versus having, you know, tons of refined carbohydrates, which are super hyper palatable, like really, really calorifically dense, really low nutrient density. And you can, you know, just go with your calories there with, you know, McDonald's and chips, but like it's gonna be you're gonna be hungrier, your blood sugar is gonna be all over the place, and your blood markers and everything are most likely gonna be really bad as well.
yeah.
So, mate, we were also talking about. I think this is an important point that we talk to clients about a lot, and a lot of the narrative around protein is bodybuilders or physique or looking good or having muscles. But I think what we want to really get across is maintaining lean muscle mass as you get older. And for you, Ray, like, do you want to share how old you are now with people?
Sure, I'm 60 and I feel in better shape than I think I probably ever have in my life. And
That's so
it's
good.
just, I know. And it's part of it was just committing to getting out of my chair more and moving more. But then the diet had to go along with that to support the extra activity, especially around, you know, weight training, fitness. So um, I think a lot about losing muscle mass as I get older. And I think this chart kind of depicts this well, that maybe I'm in that older life third now. I don't know. Let's assume I am,
So people are
but I
listening
want to
now
be on the upper end.
for
Oh
people
yeah,
who are
yeah,
listening that don't understand what you're talking about. Do you want to explain it to them?
sure. So the chart shows that in early life, most people track along the same in terms of activity and muscle mass and strength. But as you get older, there's a divergence. And into adulthood and older life, if you don't keep activity going and you don't have the right amount of building blocks for keeping muscle mass up, then what happens is you fall into this what's called a disability threshold, where you increase your chance of injury from falls, takes longer to recover. Most of us heard this too, Connor, right? I mean, people talk about, oh, I'm getting older now and that it takes me longer to blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, that's kind of giving up. You're buying into an argument you don't have to necessarily buy into. If you keep active and you keep the right dietary um, inputs to your body, then you don't lose that strength as you get older.
Yeah, and like the chart Ray is referring to, basically it has early life, so let's just call it up to 30, we'll say maximum probably. And then adult life is probably up to around 60, and then older life is probably 60 plus or maybe 55 plus. And what it shows is just as you get like basically over 30, if you're not doing strength training, uh, you are losing a huge amount of muscle mass every decade. So lean muscle mass. Now, the issue with this, which we were talking about before, is like Andrew Reid, who's an amazing coach based in Australia. He made a really good point around what is happening there for people who are getting older. So do you want to share that point, Ray?
Yeah, when I heard that on your podcast, I was really struck by it. You know, you said, um, you know, let's say you're top of your game, 30 years old, and you're 180 pounds, and 30 years later, you're 180 pounds. And you think, oh, great, I haven't really put on any weight. Well, most likely what's happened, unless you're really keeping up with strength training and keeping your diet right, is you've replaced a lot of those muscle mass pounds you have with fat. I mean, that's just the way that's going to turn out. So I was really struck by that because I hadn't considered that. We so often just focus on the goal of what's that number on the scale need to be, but I think of it now as a constant, I don't want to say battle or struggle, but it's a constant challenge to keep the my muscles being used, and strengthening is a constant challenge for me as I get older, so that I can maintain the muscle mass I have, maybe increase it, but not lose it. That's the thing. If you don't work really hard, then you're just going to lose it.
Yeah, such a good point. And like most people are probably gaining weight as they get older. That seems to be the
Right.
trajectory. So you're gaining even more fat. So even if you are, as Ray said, you haven't lost any weight, that is great. Like you're probably in the minority, but you're still actually much higher in fat than you were in your 30s or in your 40s if you're now in your 50s or 60s or 70s. Also, as you get into that disability threshold, what that means is like once you get over 60, 65, you become extremely high risk with things like falls. Like you fall, your chances of breaking a hip is going to be exponentially higher than someone who's been strength training their lower body. Your ligaments, your tendons are going to be much weaker, osteoporosis, all of these things, you're going to be much higher risk with these issues because you just haven't done anything for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So like your body is just, it responds to the environment you put it in. If you're on autopilot mode now, you're going to be in an environment that's going to put you into the disability threshold. That is, basically what's happening because of lack of use. Um, but the big thing is just to focus on, small steps, focusing on more incremental strength work and upping your protein levels. So you're not going to be in this high risk category going forwards. Um, do you want to give some, I guess, just simple guidelines? Because people are, we're going to go into actual gram amounts in a minute, but I think just making it really easy for people now, just giving them some guidelines around like, okay, how much protein roughly should I be eating per meal?
Yeah. So I think there are some simple ways to think about this. For protein, you want to think about for most meals, if you ate 2 or 3 meals a day, um, think about the size of your palm. Just open your palm and look at your palm. And men should have 2 palms worth of protein on their plate, women 1 palm's worth. So, you know, could be one chicken breast is enough if it's a big chicken breast if you're a man. If not, maybe you need to think about supplementing from that. Besides protein, though, other things you want to think about for vegetables, similar. Women want one fist, so just close your fist and look at that and think about, oh, I need that much broccoli or I need that much zucchini on my plate. For men, it's 2 fists, so one fist and 2 fists. Carbs, take your cupped hand, so not the whole palm. A cupped hand, you want to think about, again, women 1 cupped hand, men 2. So fat, you can measure with a thumb. 1 thumb of fat, 2 thumbs of fat. Well, sorry, 1 thumb of fat for women, 2 thumbs of fat for men. So obviously, men generally just need more calories in their diet than women do. I find these markers pretty helpful because you don't have to get on a scale. You don't necessarily have to look up how much protein is in so many grams of chicken. You can do that if you want. That could be helpful. But if you're going out somewhere to have a meal, you can just look at your plate and go, okay, I need to make sure I get um, a 1 or 2 palms of protein, 1 or 2 fists of vegetables, 1 or 2 cupped hands of carbs, and some fat.
Yeah,
I find that a very
exactly.
simple way to do it.
Super simple. And generally, just having more protein and more veggies, you can't really go wrong that way.
Yeah.
you know, just upping protein, upping veggies. Also with protein, if you're unsure, like from how much is in something, like just really easy. Most kind of meat, like chicken and beef, it's about 20% of the entire, we'll say, fillet of the meat is going to be protein. So roughly 20%. So you just divide it by five. So if it's like,
Mhm.
okay, there's 200 grams of meat here, pre-cooked, that's going to be like 40 grams of protein, okay, as a simple rule. Also just adjusting your portions up and down, like it's going to depend how many times a day you're eating. So this is based on, you know, on average 3 meals a day, what Ray went through, but this is also going to, you know, depend on how active you are, the results you're actually getting. So if you're following this and you're gaining weight, then you're probably still eating too much. In particular, probably too much fat and carbohydrates. They're generally the areas that we tend to overeat without even realizing it. Also around your appetite and satiety. Again, if you feel that you are very hungry all the time, up the protein, up the veggies. You know, just you're better off being really satiated in your actual meals rather than eating not enough in your meals and then going off and snacking in between, which is when you're going to go way over with your calories. And also just your frequency. So if you're eating, you know, 2 meals, 3 meals, 4 meals, you're going to have to adjust it a little bit as well. Um, we're going to go into more specific tracking now. So this is from Alan Aragon. Again, if you want to kind of go in a bit deeper and nerd out with protein, Alan is amazing. He's like the world leading researcher. I was just saying to Ray beforehand, like he he ticks off the three kind of things I think you should look for in someone if you're going to listen to them. Number one, he's evidence based, so he's actually doing the science on the thing. He's also coaching people actively still. And the third thing is he's walking the walk in that he's in his 50s, is in great shape. His wife is in her 50s, she's in great shape as well. So like he's ticking off three, you know, reasons to validate like his research, but also that he's actually following through with what he does. So do you want to go through Alan's recommendations, Ray?
Sure. Yeah, I read his book Flexible Dieting, and it's just the kind of things we're going to describe here, and I found it to be very helpful if you want to nerd out on that kind of stuff. It's
Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
readable. It's not, you don't have to be a scientist to read it, understand it, but he just backs up every one of his claims with the data. That's the best part. That's what gives you that feeling that he knows what he's talking about, just like you were saying, Connor.
Just a really funny
So,
side note before you jump in. There was you know, people get very triggered about nutrition on the internet. Like there's a lot of tribalism. And I just put up a simple, I think I put something like this up, and a guy was like, he's very pro plant-based diets, and he was like, this is bullshit, like that, you know, where are you getting these numbers from? And I was like, this is from Alan Aragon. He's done the actual scientific research. And the guy was like, this is bullshit. And then I tagged Alan Aragon, and he was like, you're an idiot. This is actually scientifically backed. Like, shut up, basically. And I was like, that's amazing, man. I love you
that's
so
great.
much. Yeah, yeah. So jump in, and I'm like the biggest
Yeah.
fan now.
For simple tracking, you could start with 1.5 grams of protein times your body weight in kilograms. So we'll fine tune that in a sec. But let's say you're an 80 kilogram man. Well, 1.5 times 80 kilograms is 120. So you want at least 120 grams of protein per day. And then that's a minimum number. Alan Aragon actually says 1.6 times your body weight is a little bit better. Really good things start to happen in terms of being able to build muscle mass, lean muscle mass. But, you know, start from 1.5 and go up, right? If you're someone who operates in pounds instead of in kilograms, then just roughly divide your weight in pounds by, you could start off with, I guess, zero point 0.7 to zero point 0.1 per pound, right? So you could start, you could say top end would be, if you're 180 pounds, then you want top end 180 grams of protein.
Yeah.
back off of that a little bit. 0.5 is not enough. 0.7, get out your calculator, do a little bit of rough math. But I found that to be helpful in terms of just helping me track how
Yeah.
much protein I need to have.
And then also like just for, let's just say the 120 gram is the goal. Like that's 600 grams of like chicken as an example. So that might be a crazy amount of meat for you to be eating right now. So you just want to think about this is something to aim towards. Like if you're currently having, I don't know, 40 to 60 grams of total protein a day, so you're eating, you know, 250 grams of the entire meat that you're having. If you can up that to, half a kilo of meat per day over the next 3, 6, 12 months, like that's what you want to think about doing. Don't think about, oh my God, this is impossible. It's the same as like your goal is to do a chin up. You're nowhere near a chin up now, but maybe in the next 12 months with consistent training and everything, you're going to start doing one chin up and then three and then five and then seven. And over seven is pretty impressive. So that's probably going to be enough. But don't, anytime we give people these numbers, they think like this is insane. Like, how can I eat this much? Or meat is very expensive, or I don't want to eat meat. And that's no problem. You don't have to eat meat. I do recommend it just from I guess a complete protein standpoint. It is the most complete form of protein if you're having animal products, but we've got lots of clients who are on a vegan based or vegetarian diet and they do great as well by just focusing on plant-based options, also adding in like protein powders, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, all this stuff are other ways that you can up this as well. Um, Anything else you
Yeah,
want to say there, mate?
I think that the first time I heard this advice, I too thought that my top number was just an insane number of grams of protein per day. But then the advice of, well, just change your diet, add more, move the needle a little bit and see how you feel. Do that for a few weeks and then try to add some more. And what I found from my own experience is that the more protein I made sure I had throughout the day, the less those cravings I would get, like I was mentioning at the start. And then it's like I was eating more calorifically dense and nutritious foods and um, less calories just wasted on sugar or simple carbs. And so then it wasn't as hard as I thought, and the
Yeah.
weight didn't go up. You end up not gaining the weight. I didn't end up gaining the weight I thought I would because I was eating the right kind of food.
Yeah, exactly. And then sometimes as well, clients are like, well, the recommended daily amounts are way lower. Like, so why are you giving us these numbers? And we just want to be really clear. Like recommended daily amounts, they're amounts that anything below that amount means you're going to be sick. So this isn't like for optimal health, this is for baseline health that they use these markers for. And over the last 50 years, they've actually gotten worse because the general health of the public has gotten worse as well. So you definitely want to be, hitting your RDAs, your recommended daily amounts, but at a minimum, you want to be going above that.
Yeah, I think the
Did this,
RDA, I'm sorry.
no, did you want to talk about that point as well, I was going to say?
I just think the RDA should be called the MDA, the minimum daily amount. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not, recommended by whom, as you said, recommended to keep you out of the hospital, and that's about it.
Yeah, there's a gym I'm actually going to get the guy on. He's on my podcast next week, Dave O'Brien. He's like, world renowned gut expert. He does a lot of functional blood work. And it was him that I came across this stuff first. I did an internship at his gym in Melbourne back in 2016. Funnily enough, he lives very close to me now in Europe. He lives in Montenegro with his family. But he was saying that, like, when you go to a doctor and you get your blood work done, they look at your blood work based on the RDAs. So you could be like, I feel like crap, there's something wrong. And the doctor's like, no, 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 you're fine. You're like, all your numbers are good. But then if you have the actual functional blood work markers, you could be super deficient in loads of things. So that's always a good thing to remember as well, that like if your bloods are in line with a GP, that doesn't, especially if you don't feel right, that doesn't mean that everything is okay. So it's always good to go to, you know, a functional blood work practitioner if you're really, really like struggling in that area. I think it's an important thing because there's nothing more frustrating than being like, I know something's not good with my health, and then the GP is like, no, no, you're like your numbers are great, like there's no problem. Um, let's talk about some recommendations of actual meals to finish off with, Ray. So for people, they, you know, we've kind of given them all the background information. Now, just some simple ideas for, you know, breakfast, lunches, and dinners to finish off today.
Yeah, okay. So certainly protein smoothies are a thing I grab in the morning if I'm kind of in a hurry. I don't have time to sit down for a meal, but I got to make sure I start with a good bit of protein. And it's such an easy add. It was such an easy add to my diet because we always had some protein powder around, but I'm I started paying attention to how much protein was going in that blender, and what I also put in with it. I would add too for the protein powder, picking up some collagen. That's a nice, easy way to add protein to all kinds of things. I put some in my smoothie as well. You can get it either as marine sourced or usually bovine sourced. But it's a simple way to add protein that doesn't add density and thickness to whatever it is you're doing. So I always put that in my smoothie. I sometimes put that in a cup of tea or coffee because you can get it tasteless. And you can add 10 grams of protein to a drink you're taking. I mean, it's just such an easy way to do that. Um, but anyway, back to breakfast things. Besides smoothies, certainly Greek yogurt. Put some nuts, maybe some fruit on there, so you get some carbs and some extra protein from the nuts. Bacon and eggs, certainly love that kind of breakfast. Have that when I can. If you're like a let's have a couple of scrambled eggs, well, make it a few more scrambled eggs, right? See if you can add more than two to that skillet as you're scrambling things, because you know eggs are a great source of protein if you're meat eater or vegetarian, and you know, just have more than two. Have four, maybe even six eggs if you can stand it. An omelet, great way to do it. Those are things that I use. I just gave up breakfast cereal. It just didn't really, it kept me, it made me hungry by 10 o'clock. I was
Yeah.
craving carbs. You know, it just didn't really, it didn't suit me at all.
Yeah, just on the nuts as well, like there is protein in them, but just be careful, like looking, especially if you're plant-based, like if you're looking for nuts for protein, you're going to be way out with calories because you're going to be so much higher in fats, which is way more calorifically dense than protein. So just be careful. Like nuts are fine, but it's just very easy to overeat them. I just want to make that point clear for people in case they're like, oh yeah, cool, I'll just have, you know, a bowl of nuts in the morning with my yogurt.
The other thing I've done too with the yogurt is put another scoop of that collagen powder in there. You can either get the tasteless kind. I've got a brand now that has a lemon flavored one, and that's you put a scoop of that in your Greek yogurt. Man, it's awesome. It's just like it just totally livens up the whole thing. You know, I don't know. I love
Yeah,
that stuff.
awesome, mate. Yeah, so like, you know, eggs are like, because you know, if you've no problem eating dinners for breakfast, then I'd recommend just eating the same thing. But most people don't want to eat like meat in the morning. So eggs is a really good thing. Like Ray said, if you're on more plant-based, then like plant-based protein powder is probably the best way to go. It is kind of trickier, but still not completely, you know, off if you don't have animal products. And then for lunch, you know, simple stuff like a protein source like chicken and a salad, or like a steak or beef and greens, or like a tempeh stir fry. They're all like good sources, you know, depending on whether you're plant-based or not. What about dinner, Ray? What are some good easy-ish options that people can do there?
Yeah, certainly roasting or grilling meats is a great way to not add a lot of fat calories, but get the protein in. So again, if you eat meats, we could basically keep chicken around all the time. I just cook some every week of one kind or another, and it's just a nice way to add protein to anything. Get out your slow cooker or your crock pot and cook a brisket, a pork roast, anything like that. You can do nice, easy way to get multiple servings that you can eat across several days. You don't have to be in the kitchen cooking every day. If you're plant-based, chickpeas, great source of protein and also very, sort of a um, um, hearty ingredient, a hearty choice. So put it in a curry. I had some last night in a stew with some ginger and some other spices, peppery spices, and just a delicious way to have protein in a meal. It's not just carb-based vegetables, but more protein-based.
Yeah, and things like black beans as well can be a good option, like for plant-based people. Also, Ray made a really good point. Like it's literally the easiest thing to do is just having a slow cooker. And in particular, if you're working from home, like just put in like a lamb, chicken, beef, brisket, whatever, slow cook it for like 8 to 10 hours, and you have the most delicious meat there ready for you in the evening, for whatever, 8 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours if you do it slow or fast. And that's such a time saver. Like you literally can just pop in a stock cube, on some very like roughly chopped onions, roughly chopped carrots, a few potatoes if you want, and the meat, and done. Like your stew is done in 8 hours or 6 hours. So we hope that these ideas were helpful, guys. And Ray, anything that you want to finish up with, mate, around protein or any words of wisdom for people?
I think the best advice is just what I give my clients now and got from you. It's just like eat more protein. Find a way to change that in your life, move that needle because you'll start to see the benefits and then that'll motivate you to do more.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And like it was actually a lady I was coaching in 2020. She had a brain injury about 10 to 15 years ago. She was plant-based for her whole life. And she came into the program. She was having a lot of issues with cognition, with memory, with her gait as well. She was in her late 50s. And we just focused on upping her protein, just plant-based options. And she was like, I cannot believe how much better I feel. Like, this is crazy. Like, she was like, everything feels better. Like my memory, my strength, my energy, my mood, like she's just like everything improved. So there is a kind of a narrative out there that like meat is bad and like we're having too much protein. Like, okay, I don't know where that's coming from, but like the biggest thing is just, experiment yourself, see how you feel. And most likely you're going to be like, yes, I feel way better. So I think that's a good way to finish today. And yeah, really appreciate you tuning in on today's show.